Angus Young, how you doing?
Good, Becko.
The Offspring.
How's it going, Becko?
Dave Grohl, how you going, mate?
Good, man.
Pete, it's been a long time coming.
Oh, Becko, hasn't it indeed?
We go inside the dressing room, speak to the biggest names in music,
Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones.
and crack open their esky.
That's exactly how I imagined you, by the way, sitting opposite me with a vodka and orange.
You're a discerning chap. This is The Rider.
Hey, it's Becko. Welcome back to The Rider. With this particular episode, I just want to get straight into it.
Wanna go for a ride?
Everyone, this is Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins. There's a man with a gun to my back, and he's making me say this. Becko.
One of the greatest bands we've grown up with, starting off with the album Gish in 1991. Every album was a masterpiece. Last count, 30 million albums. And for the next 40 minutes, we talk to Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. We're going to find out why he shaved his head after this film clip. And now in 2023, a brand new album called Atum. It is so good to be able to go one-on-one and spend plenty of time picking his brain. Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. Here he is, eh, Billy?
Hello.
Billy.
This whole world of, where are we? Digital technology. Sounds like we're in the same room, but we're not.
I'm loving the fact we can do this, though. Like, obviously, we're beaming into your house, and this is my house here. And so what is it, 9 o'clock over there in Chicago?
It is. Got a busy day. I have to work on the NWA. I have to work on a mini movie I'm working on. Then I have to take my children. My son has a baseball game today. I'll have lunch at my tea house. I'm working on the new Pumpkins record. There's one more thing I'm missing. Yeah, it's a busy day here at the Corgan Mendel household.
Well, you're about to go on tour, resuming your world tour. You got Vegas next week, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, you just reminded me. See, so when I said work on Pumpkins, that I meant I was working on the new Pumpkins record. I forgot I actually have to start learning songs for the tour today too. So thank you. I knew there was one other thing I was missing. Yeah, we're going to put a bunch of new songs in the set for this upcoming tour. I think we're doing 26 to 28 dates. We start in Vegas, which sounds auspicious, but we're going to rehearse there. Play a couple shows, and then we hit the road with Interpol and Rival Sons, and then some of the dates will be Stone Temple Pilots instead of Interpol.
Yeah,
so it's gonna be a great summer tour. You know, of course, we grew up in America with these great tours like Cheap Trick and Kiss in Kansas, and Peter Frampton and stuff like that. So I always love these summer tours because it reminds me of that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you had Jane's Addiction on the Aussie tour as well, which was just so much fun.
Yeah, they're all right. They did all right. Ammo Sniffers. I love that bill. That was just a great day of music. Battlesnake, right?
Yeah.
Just great lot. Had a lot of fun. Had the wrestling, of course, on. The wrestlers are still talking about being in Australia. They're like, can we go back? Can we go back next month? They just had the best time. They certainly liked. Let's call it the summer fun down there.
Well, the funny thing is, I got some Aussie wrestling fans, and they were saying that you were enjoying just hanging out with the wrestlers as well. Like, it was one of those things where you seemed to enjoy yourself just hanging out with them.
Well, first of all, I thought it was important that I watch every day to see how the wrestling was going, but I also wanted to see how the crowd was interacting. It's tough to explain simply, but to be quick about it, like hipster music in America, wrestling has its hipster crowd too. So to see the NWA in front of what I would call a general audience who are not necessarily wrestling fans, and to see that our product is better voiced for a general audience is the point that I've been trying to make in America, which is, yes, you can do that thing where you can point your product at the hipster crowd. I could have pointed my band at the hipster crowd, but I've long held that the hipster crowd doesn't spend as much money. They're louder than the money they spend. And if you actually look at who spends money, it's people driving pickup trucks with normal jobs who don't have time for funny mustaches, and they just want to sort of live their life, and they're looking for things that they can relate to. Which is why they like Bon Jovi just as much as they like Black Sabbath and Nirvana. So imagine we're trying to do the wrestling version of that, and avoid, let's call it the hipster version of that.
Yeah. No. And it was a huge hit. And, we were just so happy to have you come down, down here and do a tour after waiting so long and a couple of false starts with a few tours, and it's such a long way to come down here. And you even had the Veronicas up on stage. I mean, that was so much fun.
Well, they've fallen on such hard times. I felt I had to give them a leg up.
I can't believe that, some of their songs are now considered iconic. Like people in their early 30s and late 20s, they look back at some of those, Veronica's songs as how I look at the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, it's funny, Jess is engaged to be married now, and Lisa's very happily married. And I met the girls, I think, when they were 25 in Los Angeles. We met at a vegan cafe, and Jess and I, of course, publicly, so it's no secret here, we had a relationship for a while. But thankfully, after the hardship of going apart in that, we not only stayed friends, but we're close. And now, like, if we're all in LA, or obviously my family hasn't been to Australia yet, but like when we're all in LA together, we get together and spend an evening just hanging out and talking. And it's so amazing to see Jess and Lisa with my kids, and of course with my partner, Chloe. So definitely part of my family, and so happy for their success. They're so talented. It's hard to imagine there's that much talent in those little wee bodies, but there they are.
Well, when I was 19 and I was working at this radio station in Brisbane, I remember their dad bringing them in, and they would have been, I don't know, like maybe
14.
14. Yeah. It's insane, so it's been a long time coming for them. And by the way, congratulations to you. You're engaged.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Every day I wake up and I think, was that a dream? And I'm back to the other reality. No, we've been together 11 years. We have 2 children. And the analogy I like to make is that, that famous, it's the idea of the water on the rock. Just drip.
Yes.
And eventually the rock just gives way.
Yeah.
That was this life for me. So we're excited. Lots of talk about the wedding. I think part of the reason people get married is so they get to stop talking about the wedding. That was a joke, by the way.
Well, no. Well, I was going to say to you, what happens though is you get engaged and you think as a guy, oh, we've got a bit of time, we'll just enjoy being engaged. And no. As it turns out, the fiance is already booking the place and getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And
what's that show, Bridezilla?
Yeah, it's close to that.
I got like goth Bridezilla. But there's just I'm saying this in hopefully in commiseration with everyone listening. Yeah. You're sitting there and you're having your vegan your vegan food, and then she goes, so anyway, the napkins. What I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Do we have to talk about the napkins? Of course, we have to talk about the napkins. We have to talk about the dance floor. We have to talk about the lighting. We have to talk about the DJ. We have to talk about a lot of things.
Tough crowd, though. I mean, imagine being the DJ for the Billy Corgan wedding. I mean, that's a tough gig.
It's actually a friend of ours. It's actually Greg Corner from the band Kill Hannah.
Cool.
Who's from Chicago. Greg will be playing an assortment of alternative rock classics, and of course, he said to Chloe recently, "I'm really nervous because I know Billy's really going to judge what I play." So I got to get with Billy on my set list, and I thought, damn right you do.
Yeah.
You can't be playing the wrong Sisters of Mercy song here. You know what I mean? You got to play the right one. So yeah.
That's cool. That's good. Now, congratulations. Look, every time we've caught up over the years, you just seem genuinely happy, and it's so good to see. Like you can tell.
Life is interesting. I don't say this to be depressive, but if you'd asked me when I was 25 how I thought my life was going to turn out, it was way cooler in my mind than it turned out. It had a lot more fun and a lot more MTV Cribs types moments in it. My life ended up going in a lot of directions I never imagined. The band breaking up, my contentious relationship with media over 30 years and counting, becoming a leader in my community. We had a mass shooting here last year, and being part of trying to put this community back together. That's a role I never would have imagined for myself. Being a father. I met Chloe when I was 45. I thought, I'm never going to have kids now. I mean, that's just, that ship has sailed. I'm taking my son to a baseball game. As I said, it's like, there I am, the dad, the dad at third base yelling, run. Yeah, it's been a very strange journey.
And you own a tea shop.
I own a tea shop and a wrestling company. Try to put those two things together in a sentence.
Yeah.
There's nothing funnier than going, because we've been doing some shows here in Highland Park, the wrestling company. There's nothing funnier than going into the cafe and watching, the 400-pound wrestler try the vegan meatball sub. I mean, that's a commercial in itself.
Yes.
Life's interesting. Maybe because of my talk about my struggles publicly, particularly as it pertains to suicide and things of that nature, a lot of people do reach out to me when they hit kind of hard times. And I say this humbly, fans too, they'll reach out to me. They sort of seem to trust me to give them some advice when they're at the worst moments of their life. It's an incredible responsibility to think, okay, because I've been there, right? I know what it's like to stand at that window and think, I can't make it through this day. They're coming to me saying, can you give me something, just get me through to the next day. And the advice I always give, and I still give it to myself, is you just got to believe that tomorrow's going to be better. And in my case, tomorrow was better. I can't say tomorrow won't be difficult, but you just got to believe. I think that's the sort of the stuff of life. And if you look at, when I was in, what city was I in? Yeah, it was Brisbane.
Yep.
There's a beautiful Anzac Memorial there in the park. And I was passing it every day because we were doing some stuff there. And, you just got to stop sometimes. And you got to think like what those warriors went through, what they fought for, what we're still arguing about in terms of freedom, and, even freedoms as it involved the pandemic. And here we are, the U.S. is, bowing up against Russia. And, it helps sometimes to stop and think, like, life has been difficult for many, many years for many, many people. And you just got to believe that your place in it is valuable and you can contribute. So contributing is part of that. To believing that you have value, I think, is important. And when you reach that point where you don't think you have value, and sometimes when I talk about that, people are like, are you crazy? What do you mean you don't have value? You're this guy and you did all this. And I'm like, trust me, all those accomplishments didn't give me a sense of value. Somehow when I needed it, the fact that I wrote 1979 didn't help me when I was ready to jump off a roof, In fact, you could argue it made it worse, because I had somebody in my ear saying, you're no longer the guy who could write 1979. And I have had those conversations. So anyway, off on a tangent.
No, but imagine the pressure, though, of knowing that all of these kids who are growing up in their, mid to early teens are looking up to you. And I can imagine when you've put out, a number one album or, one of the biggest songs of the decade, you got that pressure. You feel like, what are we going to write next? How are we going to bet that?
Yeah. My mother used to say, why do they pay you so much money? And I said, because I can do it again and again and again and again, not just once. There's something sociopathic about willing to get up there again and again and fail and rise and fall and destroy yourself. And I don't know, there's something crazy about it, but it's the life I chose. I chose it at 15 years old, and I never looked back. And even in, my father passed away about a year and a half ago. And as you think about those things, I'm not even sure I would have become a musician if it wasn't for my father, because I think I wanted to prove something to my father. And I think by being a musician, I proved something to him. So when he died, I was like, do I even want to still be a musician? Because the reason I started is gone. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry to hear that news.
You got me in a contemplative mood over here on a Monday morning.
Well, I did hear that, in just over a year ago, and I'm losing a parent is tough, and I'm sure it was a motivation over the years. I know your childhood was probably tough at times too. So yeah, you motivated yourself to be a musician or to be good at something. And
I think the true promise of the alternative Gen X generation was freedom, and we did usher in freedom. Socially, we did usher in freedom and belief that women could be just as powerful in rock and roll as men. That was something that was made fun of even as late as 1991 or 1992. And people like Courtney Love and others, changed that, PJ Harvey. So lots of things changed with the Gen X. But somehow, and I don't truly understand it, somehow the musical freedom of that generation got lost. And I'm not here to wave the flag for Gen X. I really don't care. But that is my generation, statistically. And the one thing I refuse to do is to wave that flag on being a creative person, because I got into alternative music because I didn't fit in other places. And I wrote songs that sounded like me and not like Bon Jovi, because I was me and I wasn't Bon Jovi. And I didn't care about the girl in the car. I cared about the goth girl at the goth club. So, yeah, I think that dream continues. I don't see any reason to stop that. And I just saw The Cure the other night, playing to 15,000 people in Chicago, playing as The Cure do, a 3-hour show, deep cuts, hits, songs I didn't recognize, all great. And there's your promise fulfilled. Freedom. Just be yourself. Robert is, indomitable. I mean, he refuses to be anything but Robert Smith. And there's something so beautiful about it. And you can put him in a cartoon, and you know what I mean? You can get the wig and the whole thing, you can look like Robert but you can't be Robert. And that's what I love Robert, because he's just refused to bow to the crowd. I remember Robert once telling me about how much stick they got in the UK press for being The Cure. And I thought, oh, that's just so crazy. You're one of the greatest bands to ever come out of the UK. He's like, oh, they don't like me, and da-da-da, in the Robert voice, you don't like me. I mean, so what matters? What somebody thinks or what's been done? And what Robert has built with The Cure is 1,000 times more important than what anybody thinks. That's what I go with, right? You know what I mean?
Is it insane though that you get to hang out with your music idols though? Because I mean, it's nuts. I mean, I saw a photo of you, and I think it was David Bowie's. Was it his birthday at Madison Square Garden? Yeah. And it was
me, Lou Reed, Bowie, and
it's everyone. Like it was just
Robert
and Robert, and it must be just nuts when you think about it that you get to hang out with these people.
It's been a cool dream. I definitely can't complain about that part. Black Sabbath's probably my favorite band of all time. And when I listen to Black Sabbath, I get to think about the times I hung out with Tony Iommi and the private conversations, and, him explaining how he ended up playing in SG, and, stories that were never told. And it's just like, that's pretty cool, because, 8-year-old me listening to Black Sabbath at my grandmother's house, never would have imagined that not only were those people real, but that I would one day know them and they would know who I was. That's cool. That's cool stuff, man. That's the stuff of the pitch, the legend of the pitch.
Did you ever think in 2023 you'd be pumping out? I know you were working on 46 songs at one stage, but a 3-part rock opera.
I like the challenge.
Yeah.
Like everyone, we were in that. Remember that crazy dream called the pandemic, where you could go outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found myself inside, and I thought, I just can't do this. Like, I can't spend every day wondering if somebody's going to let me out of my house. I'm just going to go here and work, and I'm just going to carry on about my life best I can. And somehow I found something that was valuable. And it's been fun to share. I did the podcast explaining all the songs and the concept, and it's been so well received. And it's certainly the most energy around the band probably since 2000, maybe even before that. So good times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's such a mammoth task though, because I remember when we caught up during SEER, just after you put that out, you're talking about working on this, and you're saying, we've got about 46 songs right now, and I'm just thinking, that is just a huge task. But I guess also it's also hard when you're making like an 11-song album, and you got to work out what to leave out. So it comes with swings and roundabouts.
I don't really know where to go with that, because I'm not saying it's a bad question. I'm saying is there are times I've struggled to write songs, and that's not been a bad thing, because the ones I chose were good. And there's times I haven't struggled to write songs, and I put out too many songs, and I think, I probably should have left that one in the box. There's sort of there's no map.
Yeah.
The only thing I tell myself when I lay myself my head on my pillow at night is better to leave more than less.
Yeah. I agree, and especially when you got fans who, they're watching every move you're doing, and they want to hear what you're creating, and as long as it's a good standard, as long as you're happy, that's as long as the fans are happy as well, because it's getting radio airplay. It's not as though it's
you're getting there. You're getting crazy there with the fans happy. I've had this experience so many times, although that's not the case right now with the Atum album. But I've had this thing where I put out an album and there's a big whinge online, and people throw up their hands and say he's lost it. And And then 10 years later, I'm in my tea house and somebody comes up sheepishly and say, hey, I got to apologize. And I'm like, for what? Well, 10 years ago when you released that album, I thought it was terrible and now it's so great. And thank you for making it. So I've had that experience so many times that it's so I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish every time I put it out, people felt about it the way that I do, but that's just not how it works. Generally speaking, the stuff that I think is strong over time has come to be recognized as strong.
Yeah.
So that's somewhat comforting, but it's still, listen, when I put out a 33 song record like Atum, calling it a rock opera on purpose just to kind of have fun with it, it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be, oh, this is awesome, cool, keep going, or it's going to be like, oh my God, please just stick to saving puppies and serving vegan sandwiches at your cafe.
It was nice to hear some, pretty bloody strong guitar riffs in there. Were there any ones that did you dig a bit deep and find some of those buried away in previous songs that you did long ago, or were they all pretty fresh?
No. Here's the thing. I'm not offended by your question, but it has come up occasionally. I've never lost the ability to write a riff. It's my interest in writing riffs comes and goes.
Yeah.
So when you hear my music be less rock riffy, that's just because I'm off on another tangent. So we fire up that band anytime we want. And we're working on the new album that hasn't come out yet, the one that'll come out, I guess, next year. And that is all guitar. So no one will be doubting my sincerity in that.
I can't wait to hear what's coming out next year. That's going to be great. I heard a rumor that album almost leaked out.
Oh, yeah. A hacker somehow broke into a person's server. And I believe the person, they said their server was not connected up to the internet. So it was some kind of inside job. Lord knows how that inside job was pulled off. But the hacker not only had 9 songs from our record, Atum, the one that's out now, but tons of stuff by very, very famous artists, including unreleased stuff, demos. I don't want to say the bands because I don't want to put them in any kind of position, but I was sort of shocked by what this person had. And they were all related to the person whose server that they were on. So it was for real. And the fan who flagged it and contacted me, thankfully with concern, played me one of the songs, in a DM or something. And I was like, okay, we got a big problem. So we ended up paying the hacker and the hacker's promise was if we bought the songs, that would be the end of it. And that turned out to be the case. But the hacker used some kind of Venmo or something, and we got the FBI involved, and they were able to track down the hacker. So that seemed to shut the whole thing down. But yeah, I had about 2-3 days there where it was like held breath. And this was 6 months before the album was coming out. So you can imagine they tended to be some of the singles and stuff like that. So it would have kind of blown the whole deal up early.
Well, that's the thing, because you got a schedule, with the release and probably a tour and God, for everything to come out 6 months early.
Press and yeah. Trust me, when I'm done with an album, I'm happy to turn it out into the world the next day. I'm so ready to be done with it. But once you get it handed in, then everybody's like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to call this person. And so it's just the way of the world. Back in the day, you could release an album probably in about 90 days. Now it's 6 months.
Do you find you're a better songwriter now than you were in your 20s? Are you more comfortable with that, or is it just come and go?
No, I don't know. I think sometimes, like I collect a painter who's passed away for years. His name is Henry Darger, very famous folk artist. Had no training, painted for 50 years, and left this huge body of work. So he's obviously very talented, but he has no skill. So when I look at some of my earlier songs, it's fascinating because my talent shines through even where I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. And sometimes it yields a result that makes the song more unique, or I make very curious choices that are less conventional. So I think, yes, I'm better at the game now, but I would be less inclined to make radical choices because history dictates that there are certain rules in songs that tend to work. If you look at how homogenous music is in 2023, you can see people play by similar rules. I'm not saying I'm playing by those rules, but I'm saying you're conscious of, hey, this thing probably works better than this other thing because it it's like a rule or something that just sort of tends to work in songwriting. I don't know. So maybe you get a bit more kind of set in your ways, is what I would say.
Well, Keith Richards sort of came out and said in the recent interview, he said, look, he's a better guitarist than he ever was. He would redo the riffs of famous songs like Brown Sugar because he'd hear it and go, you know what, I could do so much more with that. And I thought that was interesting.
I'm not here to argue with Keith Richards because I certainly respect what he's done. But the thing is whether we want to accept it as artists or not, it's oftentimes the moment of discovery that makes it fascinating. It's actually not how well something is played. If you listen to, like lately I've been listening, because I read some of Bono's book and it made me want to go back and listen to some early U2, which, I saw them, I saw them for the first time in maybe 84, Unforgettable Fire Tour. So go back and listen to that album where U2 is, yes, they had put out some albums, but Unforgettable Fire is where they become the U2 that became the big U2, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You hear in that record, Bono's still finding his voice. He doesn't have the game down yet. He's still kind of figuring it out. And he talks about in his books, like he said he wanted to be Susie of Susie and the Banshees. That's kind of where he got his kind of high yelping thing. I never realized that. So, okay, now I'm listening to the record and you hear those influences, but that's what's interesting. You see somebody kind of at times stumbling around in the dark. It's not about, look, Keith Richards was great in 65 and he's still great. But maybe something about him figuring out how to play that way on Brown Sugar is what makes it so interesting. Where if you had the perfect Brown Sugar, it might not be as interesting.
Yeah. Do you ever go back to some of your early stuff and think the same?
I've always documented where I'm at. So I'm not saying no or yes. I'm saying that it always takes me back. I think if I've done anything right, I've always sort of dealt with my own frustration publicly.
Yeah.
So if you hear me finding it, there's a swagger. And if you hear me struggling with it, there's a sort of a kind of a tension in the music. So to me, that's what I listen for, the swagger or the tension. And the tension sometimes yields the results, and sometimes the swagger overshoots its mark. And you're the guy running for the goal, and you've got an open net, and you think you're just going to kick it and it's going to go in, and you just miss the mark. It just happens, right? You shank the ball. That's what it's like sometimes when you're young. You listen to some of that stuff and you're like, man, I thought I had it all going on, and I'm so far off the mark here. I guess that's just too inside baseball to use an American term.
But no, it still makes sense. And I mean, do you still get that buzz when you hear that say K-Rock has added a song from your new album, as much as when you were young and you heard Cherub Rock on radio for the first time? I mean, is it still the same buzz and excitement you get when you get that news?
Oh yeah. To be in the pop game this late in the story is truly a miracle. The fact that we're 3/4 intact as a band and still releasing music that's getting played on the radio it's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. Someday when I write that book and people know the inside story, they'll realize what a miracle it is that we're even able to get it together at all. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I think it's cool. I love radio. I mean, that's why I've always enjoyed talking to you. I love the format of radio. Yeah, you can have your phone and your streaming service, but there's something about driving down the road and you're having a conversation and the radio is on, and then suddenly the right song comes on at the right intersection, and you're like, and then that song is with you forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one thing that radio has over every other medium, is that ability for that station or that DJ to play that right song at that right moment, and you're forever locked. And like you brought up Cherub Rock. I still remember driving down the street in Chicago the first time I heard Cherub Rock on the radio, and I had that moment of like, is this us? Like, what? Like you're squinting at the radio, like, huh? And then I said to the person driving, turn it up. And it was just like, it sounded so massive. And because you got the radio compressors and everything's like slammed. And
yeah.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, I look at you particularly as such a famous Chicagoan.
I'm not sure Chicago wants to claim me. That's the funny part of your joke. I'm more recognized as a Chicagoan outside the city than I'm in the city.
Especially with the Chicago Bulls. I mean, I keep thinking that, imagine being in a town with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, and you'd see them around the place and go to a game. And
I was hanging out. I mean, I wasn't just going to the games. I was hanging out with the team, and
Oh, wow.
I was friends with players, and I had all the inside information on what was really going on and whose wife was mad at who. And I lived that thing for a while. That was amazing. That truly was one of the great sport teams of all time. And to watch it in person was a real pleasure. I saw Michael play probably 60 times in person, something like that.
Jeez.
I can't say I ever saw him have a bad game. I'm sure he did, but I don't remember it. The thing I always like to point out for Bulls fans or Michael fans is he wasn't just content with being the best offensive player on the court. He was also wanted to be the best defensive player on the court. So his willingness to go out and sacrifice his body to shut down opposing players, best shooting guard and stuff like that. It was amazing to watch. It certainly inspired me to try to be my best. And this city, of course, as you can imagine, it was Bulls crazy during those years.
Not to mention Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Wayne's
Well, I
World.
lived there. You know, I live that, right?
No?
No, I live, there's that famous scene in Ferris Bueller's where the guy backs the car out. And it's that sort of weird, that weird house.
That
in the
glass
caramel-
house in the middle of the forest, yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 blocks from where I was talking to you.
What?
Yeah, I live right here. I live in that neighborhood. John Hughes, the filmmaker. I'm not sure if John Hughes, I never met him, grew up here or loved this place, but he shot a lot of his movies here. So right where I'm at, in fact, I was watching Weird Science the other night at the local theater, and there's a scene where the car goes down Main Street, Highland Park, where my tea house is. So I'm here.
That is insane. I'll say it as a compliment. I think you're mellowing out a little bit in your older age.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. You have no idea. This is just a veneer of respectability. No, I'm just as mean as I've ever been. But go on.
But because of that, it feels like sometimes, the bullshit of the 90s and whatever, you're now at a point where it's just like, I don't care for all that fighting and rivalry and band versus band fights and all that sort of stuff. And one thing I loved during the pandemic, or just before the pandemic, I think it was, where you and Courtney kind of friends again, And I remember I interviewed you in the early 2010s, and I remember I asked you, the question about Celebrity Skin, and I said, do you still talk to her? And you said, what? I don't think I have her number in my phone, but it's actually is really nice when I see you on stage together again.
Oh, I appreciate that. In fact, she texted me about a month ago and said, check out this podcast I was on. And I think the guy was talking about Teen Spirit, and she was reading lyrics that Kurt didn't use for Teen Spirit on it. So but in that podcast, and I think this is why she sent it to me, she talks about our relationship and how that led into her relationship with Kurt. And so imagine I'm hearing her side of the story, 30 years later, 32 years later, about our failed courtship and the beginning of hers with her future husband. And she's all over the place as she does. And, she's doing quite well. I talk to her fairly regularly, and she's living in England. She's very happy, really enjoying her life there. Stone cold sober. And the great thing about Stone Cold Sober Courtney is it's the Courtney that I met when I first met Courtney in 91. Sharp as a tack, sober basically because she couldn't afford anything. But, that mind at work when it's clear is really a sight to behold. So I'm listening to the story, and she's rambling on, and I'm like, well, that's not true. Well, that's not true. She's completely invented half our story. So God love her. Her memory's not so great. But I was there, and it's interesting to hear her version of it all. Yeah. But yeah, we've definitely reached a point where whether you want to, use some Hemingway-esque kind of vibe of, old lovers, or family or dear friends or just associates in the game. Our relationship, as complicated as it's been through the years, I'm happy it seems to finally have settled into kind of a gentle respect. And I even would go out on a limb, occasional flashes of tenderness.
And that's lovely to hear. That's great. I remember you told me in one of our first interviews talking about you shaved your head, and I never got to ask who you shaved your head for. Was it for Courtney or was it for a different girl?
Oh no, I didn't shave my head for anybody. No. I was at a point in my life where I was so sick of people talking about the way I looked, and my clothing and my teeth. And I just thought I'm just going to completely neutralize myself. So I shaved my head, changed my shirt to a zero shirt, and basically made this kind of public declaration of like, I'm a nobody, leave me alone. And of course, as things in rock tend to work, I got more attention.
You did.
And I say this with complete honesty, no BS here. I was surprised. I was surprised that an act of negation created more energy, not less. And so that fed into a lot of what followed, because I was like, okay, if I can get energy by negation, well, gosh, I can just keep going at all these sacred cows, including the band. I was always reminded of that song that John Lennon had after he went solo, where he said, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in the Beatles. I only believe in Yoko and me. And, I kind of got what he was after. It's like, you can kind of free up a lot of energy if you just say, I don't believe in this thing anymore. And by saying, I don't believe in your idea of what a perfect rock star looks like. And I don't believe in, I don't believe that everybody has to die here to fulfill your rock journalist wet dream of what it means to be a true rock and roll rebel. I'm gonna go the other way here. I'm gonna irritate you by making music to the day I die, and hopefully get better at it as I go.
It's interesting when you talk about the rock star lifestyle and how people sort of see rockers, how they should live, and in a way that image is so destructive, because so many rockers have died living that life, and it's kind of amazing that so many who you thought might not have made it through the 90s are still here. Either that or we're both dead, and this is just a wonderful dream, and you have a radio show in heaven. That is true.
Or hell. But here we are.
I want to get a final plug in for the album, which the third part is out now, and like just a mammoth task. I don't know, what were the emotions about putting not just one album out, but one album with 3 parts? Every time you drop that extra nugget, God, you must be on the edge of your seat with anxiety, I reckon.
Well, the thing that was positive about working on it for so long is I pretty much knew its strengths and weaknesses before I put it out. I wasn't surprised by the reaction to Act 1. I knew that people were going to have a whinge about it. And then I knew, I guess, that Act 2 they would like better, which they did. So it kind of played out the way I thought it would. I don't know, the whole process of making that album just wore me down. So by the time it came out, I was just so happy it was out. I didn't really care what anybody thought. And then I was pleasantly surprised that people really seemed to enjoy it, and still seem to be finding songs on it, because there's so much work. I'll get a note from a fan like, hey man, I just found this other song I really, really like, because it's like, it's asking people to go through three bodies of work at the same time. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's honestly been a really, really cool thing. It's probably the only positive thing that came out of that pandemic was making this record.
Well, Billy, it's a gift for us as fans, and I'm so happy to hear that there's another one in the works as well. Thank you for giving me that nugget of information. But Billy Corgan, thanks again for your time. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you whenever it is, and I really appreciate the chat.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, man. Have a great day over there.
Thank you too.
All right, I'll see you soon.
Or evening maybe. Whenever.
Evening. I'm about to go to bed. How good is he? There he is, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. And of course, check out the new album, Atum. The third part is out now. You can get all 3 in a heavy vinyl for a bit over $100. And of course, the Smashing Pumpkins tour America all through the summer. Next week, one of my favourite bands out of the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. They're back on the road, and a reissue of 2 of their biggest albums. Next week, we'll catch up with Pat from Greenspoon. This is The Rider with Becko.